Hello, welcome to this Craft Connect video tutorial. Today we're going to be making some lovely greetings cards and gift tags using lino cutting. Now, getting stuck right in, the first thing I cannot stress enough is wear something you don't mind getting paint on. If it gets on your clothes, it's not coming out, so wear something a little scruffy like I have here. And don't forget, a lovely cup of tea always helps. So I'm just going to talk you through what I've got here on the table. First, starting with the tools. I've just got two out here. You will have in your pack one handle with different heads that you can slot in, and you can see I've got two different widths here to get different effects. I've also just brought a pen so I can sketch out my design, and I've got some just scrap paper here because we're just experimenting. Different inks. I'm just using what I had to hand. The inks you have come in smaller pots, and you've got more choice of colours as well, so you can really try out some different patterns and designs. Lino roller, and the sheet of plastic is there as well for you to roll out your ink. I'm going to just start by chopping up my lino actually. Again, this is just a bit of extra lino I had to hand. I'm chopping it up so that I've got a bit to experiment on, and then two larger pieces for actually doing my designs. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it's a great way to try out lots of different things with the lino you have available. So first, I'm just going to have a go at trying out what happens with each of my tools. It's great to do this if you're new to lino cutting, or just if these tools are new to you, to see before you start properly on your design, what do the marks of each lino cutting tool make, and you can get confident with those first. So you can see I've got one that makes a much wider, deeper line, and one that makes a much thinner line, and that's a bit easier to do the curve actually. You saw I struggled a bit with the wider one, but that thinner one, the curve is much smoother. Alright, so first I'm going to have a go at drawing out my design on the lino. For this one I'm going for a really simple holly berry, very Christmassy. So I'm just drawing it out in biro first. It's a little hard to see on the video, but I can see it, and it's just a guide for me to work with. As you can see, I've gone really simple, but sometimes that actually gets a really great effect. Simple can be more striking, or a little bit more eye-catching sometimes. And if you're newer to lino, it's much easier to cut out as well. Now I'm separating the berries from the leaves, just cutting those to separate them. And the reason I'm doing that is so that later on, when I want to colour them, ink them up, it'll be easier to colour the red on the berries and separately do the green on the leaves. Saves me a lot of time that way. So I always start when I'm lino cutting by actually just cutting round the edges of the bit I want to keep. So remember, when we're lino cutting, anything that you want to keep, that you want to appear in the ink, leave it, and cut away anything that you don't want to appear in the ink. I know it sounds obvious, but it's so easy to forget when you're actually cutting away. So I begin by just doing the outline. It might feel a little bit counterintuitive. I know it's quite tempting to just start on the edges and work your way towards the main bit, especially if you're a little less confident. But I actually find that doing the outline this way gives you a barrier then, so that you're less likely to cut away something that you wanted to keep, and it's easier to remember then as well which bits you're keeping and which bits you're cutting away, because you've outlined them like that. So now I'm just going to cut the rest away. It's so satisfying to watch this as well. So you can see now I've cut that outline, I can just breeze through the rest of it because my tool is actually going to be stopped by that ridge that I've created around them. And this is sped up a little. if you're feeling a little less confident, slow and steady is always the best thing to do. And just remember as well, as you can see, keep your fingers behind where you're cutting. It's so easy to slip and just nick yourself, and these tools can be really sharp, so do just keep reminding yourself to keep your fingers out of the way. Once you've cut out your shapes as well and you've done that outline, you can cut in any direction, and I actually really like the textured effect that you can sometimes get from that. I think it really adds to that homemade feel and feels very rustic and handmade. So I'll cut in straight lines, just taking that excess off, and you can see sometimes when I get to an edge there's a bit of a ridge where my tool hasn't gone all the way. So when I get that, I just go down the edge. Alright, I'm just cleaning those bits off, and there, that's the first piece done. So moving on to the leaves now, I just wanted to show you this close-up as well, so you can see this is how slow it is in real life. But again, it's so satisfying to watch that image, that design carve away, and you bring it out of the lino, and again you can see that texture, that little bits of that are going to be picked up by the ink. So if you don't like that, you might want to cut a little deeper than I have and get rid of some of those ridges. But in lino cutting, it's quite a popular effect, and I think it looks really good actually. And you can see as well, a great tip when you're using the tools is to push forwards rather than downwards into the lino. You don't want to cut too deep and try and gouge a hole. So that's the two pieces together. Now we're going to ink up. So take your plastic sheet, and you only need a small blob of ink. What I've put on here is probably even a little more than I need. You need a pea-sized blob really. Then take your roller and roll it out on the sheet. What we're trying to do here is get a tacky consistency to the ink, and one of the best ways to check if it's the right consistency is actually to listen to it. So I'll show you what that sounds like. Yeah, really tacky. You can hear that stickiness. Then you're just going to roll your roller across the ink to transfer the ink on there. Don't just put your paper down willy-nilly. You want to make sure you're lining it up so that there'll be space for the rest of your lino piece as well. I've heard this called a jigsaw type of lino cutting, which I can see why. And then using the back of a spoon, little handy trick, just smooth it over to make sure all the ink is pressed onto the paper. Gently peel it away, and voila, your first print. We're going to do the leaves next. So I'm just popping a little bit of green ink onto my sheet. I'm using 2 sheets here just for time saving in the video, but you can really easily rinse off these sheets. That's why we provided them. Again, just roll out your ink until it gets that nice tacky consistency. Then ink up your leaves, same as before. Just as a tip, if you do want to do more than one print and you're doing a jigsaw like this with more than one colour, it would probably be most time effective, rather than having to rinse them every time, to do all of one colour first. So say you're doing 10 cards, do 10 of the red, then rinse off, then do 10 of the green, for example. It's just going to save you a lot of time. Then again, smooth it down with a spoon. You can see I lined it up as well to make sure that it's gonna fit in the right place. And voila, that's my first print. It's rough around the edges, but that's okay. This is experimenting, like we said. And in this one you can see I'm just showing another way of, if you've got a slightly more complicated jigsaw piece to put together, it can help to ink them both up at the same time and then piece them together so that you print all in one, rather than trying to have to do one after the other and hope it lines up. That can get a little tricky if you've got lots of pieces going together. The one I've done here, there's just 2, so it was quite simple to do it either way. So I decided this would make a great gift tag, so I'm just cutting it out here, and then I'll add some twine when it's dry, and it makes a really lovely gift tag for a present. So just to give you some more inspiration as well, I'm going to do a second example here, which is actually fitted to the size of a card. This is much smaller than the cards you will have, but I'm just having a play with different ideas, different designs. Because I wanted it to cover the front of a card, I'm cutting my lino to the exact size of my card so that the ink will reach the edges of my card and we won't have any strange blank spots. I did a Christmas tree design for this one, so again I've done a jigsaw piece. I've taken the design of the star and already cut that separate, and now I'm just carving out the Christmas tree shape. This one I'm going to do 3 different colours, and I'll show you a little trick as well for how to get extra details on. So you can see here I've done that outline, especially with something like a star. It's so small and there's a lot of detail in there, there's a lot of different angles, so I found it easiest to do that outline first. And here you can see it's all cut out. And then I decided to also use my thinner tool to really get around those bauble shapes and bring those out of the design. And I actually just used a paintbrush to go over the top of those to add some red ink. It took me a little bit of fiddling, but we got there. Lined up my jigsaw piece. And then again, just placing the paper down, and I'm using the back of a spoon to just smooth it out to make sure that all those details are going to transfer onto my paper. I was quite pleased with that one. Well, I really hope this has given you some good ideas and gotten you excited about doing lino printing. Just keep your fingers safe and just have fun, and we really look forward to seeing any results that you make. Do share them on social media, that would be brilliant. We'd love to see some of them and see what you get up to. Fab, have fun!